Hi, this is David Haslet, and today's painting technique is an ink painting technique where we're going to do a promontory point, this mountain that comes down to water and where you see reflections of trees. You're going to need a brush like this. It's an Asian style ink brush. I've talked about these before. They hold a lot of watercolor or ink. They come to a really fine tip when they're wet, and they're just so versatile. I really like these. You can do a lot with them. You'll need one of those. You'll also need a vial of India ink. This is the same kind of ink used for tattoos. It stains like crazy, but it's sedimentary. So when you use it across here, like this promontory point, it almost looks like miniature layers of mountains and hills. And it's just, it looks quite natural. You also need a small container of water. That's what I've got right over here. This is to control how much ink is in your brush. And it's going to look a lot like the double loading technique in that watercolor video that I showed. Let's see how you do it. Here, I'll set up my paper. And I'll get my brush. And I'm going to dunk it in the water, getting it fully wet and wiping off extra drips. I need a damp, a thirsty brush, so that when I touch just the tip of it in this ink, and I'm going to be really careful to touch just the tip, you can see how much is on there. I've done a little bit more than just the tip. So this is going to have a very dark top mountain range. We'll see how it goes anyway. I'm going to hold the brush at length. I'm not going to hold it really small like I would a pencil or pen. I'm going to move my hand up and I'm going to spread my fingers out a little bit so I work with the pivot. I'm going to start my promontory on the left and I'm going to move my brush to the right. And as I move it, I'm going to slowly turn my brush and then do some jagged shapes for the tops of that mountain. Okay, so here we go. Touching just the paper. Oh, look how dark that is. Yep, okay. And then making it kind of jagged. Little gaps like that can work to our advantage too. Wow, look how those the bristles, see how they came off like that a little bit? That's what gave these little points. I think we can work with that well. I'm going to move it together though at this point, and here I'm going to make a straight line at the base. This is going to be the shoreline. And then I'm going to slightly dilute my brush, so I'm just going to do a bit of a dunk. See how there's some ink that's left over? Get my point again, and this is going to be small dabs for the trees and such, so I'm going to make it irregular. So maybe these are poplars or lodgepole pines that are by the lakefront. Try not to be too evenly spaced. If you find yourself doing something like that, you got to break it up. So small lines like this, some wider, some narrow. Now I'm going to dilate my brush a little bit more. Let it sit in there a little bit. Look how much ink came off. Okay, let's see about this. That's going to make my ink a little bit lighter. It needs to be somewhat lighter though, because reflections aren't going to have the potency of the full value that we see of what's being reflected, like the trees. So now I'm going to match what I have down here as well as I can. And first dunk, and I see that's still too dark. So I just got rid of a little bit of ink. See if I can take some of that out. These are all quite dark, so I'm going to get a little bit more ink off of that. You'll see these getting a little bit lighter as we go to the right, as I try to match the reflection. That went pretty well. Let's go for another go though. With Asian style ink painting, sumi-e in Japanese, repetition is everything because it isn't always going to act the way that you want it to, but rolling with it is the way that we need to go. And practice helps you get the kinds of forms that you're looking for, to do what's in your mind to do, but there always is an element of going with what comes and making the most of it and seeing what wonderful surprises come. So here I'm going to do the same thing here. I just rinsed out my brush. I'm going to touch just the tip this time in the ink. There we go. So you can see a little bit about how dark this is. Okay, I'm going to do the same kind of thing. Notice how my hand is on the brush. I'm angling to the left. And this has more of a gradation, that dark to light. I think this is going better. Make it kind of jagged. I'm gonna leave it kind of rough over there just for fun. I'm gonna get my tip back just by moving on the edge of that inkwell. I'm gonna find that shoreline again, angling, pivoting. This is going much better. Okay, now the trees, dots. Some of these are going to spread into what's still wet. It's okay. A little extra hair I'm going to get rid of over here. Okay. All right, and now I'm going to dilute this again. I just dunked my brush into that extra water. It looks like an inkwell, but this is just water that's been had ink added to it. Now this brush should be more diluted. I'm going to try to match those trees again just underneath. Notice I'm skipping down a little bit over here. That's because reflections they're symmetrical on the horizontal plane. So if this tree over here is up a little bit from the shoreline, its reflection has to be down a little bit. So that's intentional. There we go. See the difference that that second one made? Sometimes you just have to roll with it. This is the promontory. Again, where these mountains go to the water. A lot of times with Asian ink style painting, you paint things without actually painting them. Like, I didn't paint the water at all, but I painted the reflection, and that says something about that space. It's all intentional. So this is Promontory. Have fun as you paint.